What's up, my dudes? We got the 2020 Comeback MX made by Hildy21. Let me give a little high five to the squirrels up here in this tree right quick. Track reviews coming back 2020? I don't know, Dag. Haven't made a track review in a while. But, dude, this used to be like what my channel was basically all about, was track reviews and custom tracks on MX Simulator. I definitely need to get that vibe going again for sure. Used to be so much fun coming in here and checking out new tracks and just seeing what the community is coming up with, right? So this track is what I would call like halfway built for a road, right? It's kind of like halfway in a road track. And the way you know that is, in reality, you know, most people would have built the ruts a little bigger, the roughness a little bigger. It's got very, very smooth, long, rolled out roughness, very smooth, small ruts in the corners. So I'm not 100% for sure that it was built around a road, right? But it certainly feels like it was to some extent. So it almost gives you that like super easy local vibe track when it comes to the pre-made version of this, which is what 99.99% of people are going to be riding on when it's on a random, custom track like this. They're not going to have a road on in single player. They're not going to go in there with, 40 dudes on the track or 20 dudes on the track when it's just a random custom track like this. So this is pretty much the track right here, Doug. So if it wasn't made around the road, it's just a very easy, very local vibe, very small roughness, very chilled out roughness, very chilled out, braking bumps and chilled out ruts. But it's not like what I would call a totally built around a road track, right? It's not like super flat tracking. There's definitely some pre-made here, but it just doesn't feel like full pre-made, right? So either way, still a pretty fun track though. Like this one's definitely got quite the jump fun factor and the high speed kind of sandy loam fun factor going on here. He's got a lot of different off-track trees going on. He's got a pretty cool little off-track decal vibe with some rolling hills, and I don't know, it just feels like a cool little, I don't know if this is like trying to be in Florida or something like that. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting from it. Little like backyard, little local Florida vibe track or something. So it's pretty cool. We got a big Hug Daddy Fatty triple right here that I'm a little too scared to hit 2 laps in a row. But yeah, I don't even know if that's actually worth it because you're getting, literally 3 years of airtime there. So I'm not really sure if that's really worth it as far as a speed sense goes, but it's still kind of fun to hit when you can hit it. So, yeah, just some fun little jumps. Got to be a little careful on some of these jump faces. Some of them can kind of feel a little bit kickered out, little abrupt for how fast you're hitting them, but he did a good job making these jumps fun, though, and like giving you a big enough of a landing to where they're not super difficult, but they still have that big jump fun factor. They're not super small, every jump trying to be way too one-to-one scale or some crap like that. Like the overall jump design's pretty fun on this thing, man. He's got a couple areas where you can kind of over jump into the roughness a little like that. Be sure and don't pop off the bike, Dag. But, yeah, so either way, I mean, I would say, yeah, the ruts probably could have been a little bigger pre-made wise. Like I've always said, I really don't like when people make custom tracks around a road. It's one thing if you're making a pro track around a road. That's like one thing. But if you're trying to make a custom track around a road, seems as if it's like most people are just never even really going to experience whatever sort of a road level you had in your head or whatever you thought that the track should have, felt like or been the rut should have felt like on it or whatever. Because most people, I'm telling you, when it comes to these random custom tracks, most people just come in here and ride on this shit on single player with no road on at all. That's what most people do. And if it does happen to get put up on some server, you're going to have like 5 people on there. You're not even going to have enough people to even make proper a road on the track anyways. So it really is kind of pointless to make a, MX Simulator custom track around a road. It really is pointless. Like I say, I don't know if he 100% was trying to do that on this track. I'm not going to, fully, like, try to read his mind here, put words in his mouth or whatever, but it just sort of feels like that. That's all I'm saying. I've rode on a lot of tracks that were sort of somewhat made around the road. I mean, just like this, like these ruts right here are very, I don't know, they're just very like built for a road type ruts, right? And like they're just very, very smoothed off, very, I don't know, just that more like you're riding on one of those earlier 2019 national tracks, right? That's kind of what this track feels like in most of the corners. There's a couple corners that he kind of amped up the ruts a little bit, but like right up here, this first corner, you got a pretty big berm coming around this corner. You can kind of bank into that pretty good, but it's just overall, it's got that sort of, traction that's kind of like some of that modern, kind of weird modern RF traction, maybe not as bad, but kind of got a little bit of that feeling to it combined with, the super small ruts. It can kind of be hard to really carry a lot of speed on this track. You definitely have to slow down quite a bit, just not fly right off the track because the berm's so smooth and the ruts are so small and smooth, right? And the traction doesn't really lend itself to just like diving into a corner and, really hooking up in the ground and tractioning all the way around the corner. Doesn't really, play into that much. So, but yeah, it's just a bizarre thing to see how some of these custom tracks have sort of evolved. And like even before there was ever really a road in this game, like back 17 and past, you still had some custom tracks built kind of like this when people were trying to make more like quote unquote easier, local vibe, amateur style tracks or whatever, not so big of ruts and roughness. And that's cool. Like, I don't have any problem with people making easier tracks or smoother tracks or whatever, right? Even if you want to go in there and make a custom motocross track that doesn't have any ruts or any roughness, I still think that's okay. I like there to be a very make whatever the heck you want to make kind of system to the custom track making in this game. So don't get that part twisted. I definitely like when there's that open sandbox freedom to be able to make anything you want to make. But what I have to say is, in a lot of occasions with some of these custom tracks that have come out since they started doing a road, you can just tell a lot of them have specifically been built around that, right? Specifically been built like trying to make a smaller rut track so that when you do start riding on it with the road, it doesn't just make gigantic, berms, you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely some track makers that have started to make tracks around that. So, I don't know. This is just one of those tracks that seems like maybe it was somewhat built around it, but not fully built around it. So, you're kind of getting that somewhat bizarre in-between feeling, right? Kind of what it feels like. Or maybe he was just going in there trying to make more of an easy, small, smooth rut amateur vibe track. I don't know for sure. Sometimes it can be kind of hard to tell, but even if you're making smaller ruts, like a more amateur vibe track, a lot of times even if you're having smaller ruts, you're not going to make them so like rolled off and smooth as what these are. That's what's giving me the impression this was sort of made around the road because of how rolled off and smooth the ruts are. Not just how small they are, but how smooth. It's almost like they're so smooth that it's trying to compensate for that weird little janky, roughness through the rut kind of vibe that you get when you have a road on in the game. It's almost like it's trying to compensate for that with having those super smoothed out ruts, right? So I don't know if that's what he was trying to do or not exactly, but either way, still some pretty fun jumps. Still a couple of bigger berms like that you can get into and, really get on the gas pretty heavy, pretty skill gappy area right here where you got to really get slowed down for that corner. Then a fun triple right here. He's got a pretty good overall like layout mixed with jump design where it really just kind of keeps you interested in the track. You don't really feel like you're getting bored anywhere. It's like, oh man, what's that next big jump I can try to hit? Or, oh, I'm going to come around this rut like this speed or whatever the case may be, right? Kind of keeps the track fun, keeps it interesting. I think that inside rut on that corner specifically probably could have been about 25% bigger. It's almost just pointless even trying to roll up the inside of that rut, really, unless you have a road on, right? But yeah, the way he made his roughness is very like, it's funny how different you can design roughness in this game. There's literally a trillion different ways you can make roughness in this game. Like, and by the way, this jump right here can be a lot of fun trying to huck this all the way up to that landing. You might even be able to huck it further into that roughness, right? Do like a fucking 5 jump into the roughness. But it's interesting how, like, the whole, different ways to make roughness. You can have like small, little, close together, choppy roughness, or you can have like bigger, almost more like whoop roughness, whoop breaking bump roughness, like what would be on a like 17 Redbud track or something. Or you can have more like this, which is, it's like very spaced apart roughness. So it's like a very, very easy form of roughness. He's got like just almost just little bitty divots and little bitty just like kind of almost not even roughness in a way, just little bits of changing terrain over the whole track just to give it a little bit more of a realistic feeling and not be so glass flat, right? It's kind of more like what this is, more than like actual quote-unquote roughness or quote-unquote breaking bumps. This is more just super spaced apart, really smoothed out little divots all across the track. And that's basically what you got. As you can see right here, I mean, I don't know if you can really see that on YouTube very well, but it's just a bunch of little divots. Like, you're not really going to have to slow up because the roughness is too insane on this track, on any part of the track. It's not like the roughness is going to kick your ass end out to the side and you're going to wreck or something like that. It's not even really that kind of roughness. It's just very, very slight little terrain manipulation, right, to make it a little more realistic than perfectly glass flat, which I commend him for doing that, because a lot of times when people are making tracks like this, a lot of times they just make it perfectly glass flat and then it just gets boring pretty much instantly. So, but yeah, overall not a bad total track here. Fun factor, I'd put this thing, it's just cool how he amped this jump up pretty good right here. He could have made that a lot smoother and it would have been a lot more boring, but he kind of amped it up a little bit, so it gives you a little bit more of that fun factor. Where you can kind of broadens that skill gap a little more to where, the pros can really start jumping all the way into this roughness versus just barely jumping that double. There's quite a few little places like that where you can separate yourself jump-wise on this track, which is always a good thing on any track. I hate when tracks are just like so one-lined when it comes to the jumps. Everybody's just hitting all the jumps the exact same every lap. You got to have a little bit of variation and more potentials to the jumps, right? And he seems to have captured that pretty well here for what seems to be like a local vibe, little motocross track. So, but yeah, I got a nice little pond over here. Gonna do me some fishing down by the river and sing me a song. But, yeah, Doug, not bad. I'd say fun factor, you're probably looking at like a 8 out of 10. Environments, probably. I mean, it's not bad. He's kind of mixed together some different overlays and then some decals on the overlays, on-track decals separate from off-track, a lot of different sort of texturizations to the decals going on here. He's got some really smooth, some a little more gritty, gives it some variation. I would say the off-track's like a 7 or an 8, something like that. Probably more like I'd probably say like a 7 on the off-track. Fun factor's like an 8. Uniqueness is probably like a 7, I mean, even though it is standard woodland, it is a little bit changed up from your everyday MX Simulator standard woodland track, right? You can definitely tell it's kind of got its own little vibe here. So that's why I'm giving it a 7 for uniqueness. It's not like a super crazy different design or anything, but what is this? It's a little supercross track over here that I did not even see. Why does that happen like all the time in this game? It seems like a lot of these custom tracks just have these little bitty like supercross tracks just, plop down right in the corner of the track and you don't even know it's there until you're in here making a track review on it. But yeah, so if I could rate this thing like overall, I'm going to give this thing like a solid 7.5, something like that. 7.5 overall. It's kind of where I'm at on it. I hate to do points. I hate to do decibels, but That's about where I would put it. I don't know if it's quite to like an 8 overall, but I don't want to go like super low either because it is a pretty cool track and it's a fun track. So I'd probably give it like a 7 just to not have to deal with a 0.5. I'd probably give it like a 7 overall. And difficulty, probably looking at easy on this thing because it is more of a local vibe, small roughness, small smoothed out ruts. The jumps is the only real aspect of it that's going to have a little bit of skill gap to it, you know. You're going to have to know how to jump some bigger jumps to be able to get around this track properly, to be able to hit the bigger jumps anyways. Not that you have to hit them, but if you really want to be hitting all the bigger jumps, you're going to have to know what you're doing because a lot of them have pretty abrupt jump faces, pretty peaked out jump faces, so... And they're not like super peaked really, it's just the fact that you're hitting them so much faster because you're on a motocross track. It's almost like some of these jumps have a little bit more of a supercross jump peakness, but you're hitting them like literally twice the speed you would be on a supercross track, so it kind of gives you more of a, you know, abrupt sort of bouncing off the jump face type feeling, and if you don't know how to control the bike over that, it can be a little bit tricky. So I'd say difficulty's probably between like easy and medium, somewhere around there, you know. But either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.